So just a wonderful story there. I think the top 10 women were faster than like the second woman last year. So like they all ran so fast. But then on the men's side, Jim Walmsley's like historic course record went down. 4 people went under the course record and 3 people went under 14 hours for the first time. So it was kind of a bit of a seminal moment. So that was the irony. 2 people broke the course record, went under 14 hours and didn't win.
Crazy.
But the person who won was a guy, a French guy called Vincent Boyard, who came on the scene a couple of years ago by a surprise winner of UTMB.
Welcome back to Two Average Runners, episode 16, if you can believe it, with me, Alice Penn, and our favorite Welshman living in Texas, Hugh Edwards. How are you, Hugh?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Alice. How are you?
Pretty good. Heat wave is over, so it's just sort of normal, moderate temperatures, so feeling good. How has your week been?
The week has been solid. It has been just a solid week, both between, personal family life and run life. Fun weekend. Did some cool activities with the little Henry, splash pad and sand pits and stuff. And I got a stroller run in with my good friend who has 2 boys. So we take them on a little stroller run on Sunday morning. That was a really good kick off to some good training that followed. And it's kind of fun. They get so excited and they will try to encourage us to go faster and to do wheelies. And it's kind of fun being we get a lot of comments by other runners on the trail, because we do this sort of like, it's like a greenway, it's called. So it's a paved trail, but it has these switchbacks. It has a bit of a climb. So we have to work quite hard on the way up. And so we get some comments from people that are like, great work, daddy-os or whatever. So it's kind of funny.
Have you ever done a race with the buggy, with the stroller?
No, I haven't yet, but I've been thinking about that. Like maybe one of the next time there's like a notable 5K or 10K that everyone's doing that I don't want to don't want to race. So I haven't done one yet. Like probably we'll do a turkey trot, I think. Maybe over Thanksgiving.
I've done some shorter races, and there are occasionally guys with the babies in the, I guess, buggies or prams or whatever they call them here, and so fast, like coming past you, sort of overtaking you. Crazy. Like I think I did a 10K and the guy was like 36 minutes, 37 minutes or something like that. And the kids were small, like 18 months, 2 years, sitting in there, hat on. And I'll just tell you quickly before you carry on with your week, my sister and her husband also run a lot, and they've got 3 kids. So the kids have been through plenty of that, sort of going with mom and dad for a run. And my sister said they're always shouting at her, go faster, or go faster like dad, which really winds her up because she's much faster than him anyway. But when they shout, go faster like dad, it just pisses her off.
Oh my gosh, I thought I'd share that. Too funny. That is too funny. I think we might have come up in our first episode where we were talking about how we got into running. I still have memories of that, like 4th of July 5-mile run in Aspen that I did in 2011, and being overtaken by women pushing single and double strollers. It was getting overtaken by the double stroller, was doing a 5-miler was like pretty humbling. But yeah, so that was a good start. And then I've just got some good training in since. Had a really strong strength session yesterday. And I'm sort of like, if you recall, I think, when we started, maybe we'll come when we started recording this, but like in March, I really started some focused strength training after I sort of injured my back in February. And so with my trainer, we've been really working. He's like such a smart strength trainer. And he's got a master plan that he's trying to build me up bit by bit. So yesterday was the first time we had got under the bar as a back squat. We've done other squatting things where you're whole different and lots of different very machines, single legs, different activities. But this was the first time back, and a lot of it focused on the breathing, because if you might remember, if we I can't remember if we shared this with our listeners, but I hurt my back, and really I think what happened is that I just let go of my core, at the bottom of, after a second rep of a heavy back squat. And then obviously try to extend up and end up, rather than my glutes being engaged and my core being tight, I then obviously lifted and pulled my back.
Oh.
And I think a lot of it was because of the breathing. I wasn't holding my breath and controlled and keeping everything tight. So that was kind of cool. So we did pretty heavy, and we're doing on the heaviest set, 8 reps on the first set, nice and controlled. So it kind of felt like we'd really really come a long way since February. So that felt great. And that was good because it was under a bar, right? I think that the 2 weeks before we had done, in the gym there are different machines as well. There's sort of a leg press machine where you put the weights, you use the little thing to set the weight. And we had, on that one there, we had maxed it out. So for like, I think maybe 5 reps, which is like 420 pounds total, which is probably...
So this is double leg, I'm assuming.
Yeah, this is double leg. And though we have done not at that level of weight, single legs on there for different strength in, which I think we've talked about doing single leg stuff in the past. So that was itself a pretty cool moment that like there was no more weight to be able to put on it because my legs are strong, but obviously it's controlled. It's a leg press. Like all you're doing is pressing with your legs. You're not having to control the bar. So that was kind of a cool one. That's like 200 kilos. I think that is. But last night, that kind of felt cool to sort of like be back under a barbell and feel like there was progress. And then I went back to the track for the first time in a long time this morning, which was not ideal the day after doing strength.
No,
but life sometimes these are the options you get.
Did you go counterclockwise? What was your direction?
I did counterclockwise for my actual work set, and I did a kind of what is known as a swap. The Some Work Will Play, David and Megan Roach, one of their classic ones early in pretty much every training plan they have is 16 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off.
Okay.
And the 1 minute is on our around about sort of 5K to 3K effort, right? So not like hammering, but but still
pretty hard
but still pretty hard. And so, but it's 1 minute. You can pretty much do anything in 1 minute. And it's only like, if you think about it, 16 minutes total of work.
Yeah,
so
it's not too bad.
That felt pretty good. I mean, I was really strong in the third set of 4, if it's like 16 for 4 sets of 4 in a way. The third quarter of it, I was really strong, getting faster and faster, and I kind of like it just kind of like faded a bit in the last 4 reps, though not on the last one, but like it was sort of like a little weaker there. But yeah, it's humid as hell. Cool. I was so sweaty this morning at Malice. So anyway, so that was overall, I feel like it feels like we're sort of back to a bit more some consistent training and so solid week.
Brilliant. Good.
How about you?
Week was good. I'm, living in my new little location in St. Albans, but I did go through to London for the weekend and had some good runs. I got to see my fluffy golden retriever, Monty, and Dale. And Monty had some good swimming in the fountains in Battersea, which is not allowed, but we did it anyway. And so it was a good weekend from that point of view. Running wise, I think we spoke last time about had my marathon pace interval into park run. I mean, you can't believe it. I had like dry mouth at the start of the park run because that's how anxious I was. So I think it's really good that I'm doing them because it's giving me that race anxiety, which I think is sort of the big thing I'm struggling with. So it actually went quite well because I think the week before it was the solo one and I didn't go all out and I think average pace was sort of 3:55 or 3:57 a minute. I mean, per K. So it was, 19 minutes, 45 seconds, which I think was kind of all right considering my top end I've done close to nothing. I mean, it's a lot slower than I really should be, but after the marathon pace block and in the heat. So that was pretty good. But I see what my coach has done this week. It's 20 minutes at marathon pace, park run, 20 minutes at marathon pace. So that's a bit of a longer run.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to do that one again on Saturday. But it was nice to just do it and enjoy a bit of competition and actually see how much easier it is when there are people around you.
Yes.
Like those 2 loops of the park actually went quite quickly. And so I was secretly quite pleased, even though it's like not a great time. It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I tried out the St. Albans track yesterday, which I thought was quite amusing because every time I run past it, it looks like, does anyone ever run here? Does this even
Is it locked? Is it opened all the time?
Yeah, it's locked. It's locked. And it's in the middle of a sort of a green space. I've never seen anyone on it in the times that I've been past. So I went to the website and it says, no, you can book a slot. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll book a slot. But I mean, book it. It gives you like random times, 7:00 in the morning or 7 in the evening. And it tells you only get an hour, but £5. So I'm like, fine, okay. So I rock up there at 7:00. Sure enough, there's a man there supervising the track. And he's like, hey, Alice. I was like, yes. He's like, right, I've got you booked in. I said, my session will probably be like an hour and 10. He's like, no, I'm leaving at 8. And then he walked me through the rules.
Did he say that?
Yeah. No, I'm leaving at 8. Walk me through the rules of the track. It actually has a great surface. No running in lane 1. And he's put out all the cones the whole way around the track because they're preserving the tartan for race nights. So you can run. He said, I've got 10 of you booked in this morning. We're going to go counterclockwise this morning. Sometimes I change direction. And he was there tinkering around with fences and moving things from A to B. And they don't have any actually, the little building next to it doesn't have any functioning loos or toilets. So they've got 4 portaloos at the top end. So as you come into
at least you got a portaloo. At least you got a portaloo.
Exactly. And there was loo paper in it. So that was great. But as you come into the 300 meters, you get the nice whiff of the portaloos at the top end of the...
Oh my God.
So that was really awesome.
That's brutal.
But it was actually, people were quite friendly. It was quite fun. And then 8 o'clock, he was looking at me and I said, I've got 200 meters. I was like finishing off my last bit. And then there was a woman coaching another woman who was ready to go at 8. And then he and I had a chat. He is running Valencia half and he was asking what I'm training for. So it was all quite friendly, but it was also quite amusing because it's quite sort of organized and there were rules. And like when I rock up at Paddington and there's people just, as I've told you before, doing Tai Chi in the middle of lane 2, walking backwards and people doing whatever the hell they want. So, but their surface was quite nice and it was actually just quite fun to do something different. So yeah, that was my running. I have picked up a little bit of a niggle.
Okay.
Which happened last week, a sort of sharp pain in the inside of my foot. So I went to see my physio on Monday and I thought what was really good about it and why I'm bothering to share it is having been through so many injuries before and having had the stress fractures, as soon as you feel any pain, you think, oh my gosh, what is this now? Shouldn't I be running? So it was a really good lesson. I just got to the physio really quite quickly. Mm-hmm. We spoke about it. We think it's just the posterior tib tendon. It comes down the inner part of your sort of lower leg behind that inner ankle bone and it inserts itself into the navicular and sort of the middle of your foot. And I think because I've been on new surfaces, some new shoes, lots more camber, quite hilly, that's been working overtime and the sort of sharp pain has come on. But what was cool about it is there's no reason to not run. It's just brilliant. Keep going, strength, up to pain to a certain level is fine. It's almost like resting it isn't going to get rid of it. It's the strengthening and working on the balance. Like we established the balance in that ankle is really quite weak compared to the other side. So it was just nice to go and get seen and get that sort of anxiety and worry out your mind early on. Is this something I should be running through or not? So that was quite a nice little learning, even though it costs, 100 quid a pop just for that sort of peace of mind. So yeah, all in all good. And not this weekend, but the following weekend's the Saucony 10. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I'll chat to my coach next week and see what we think I'm going to do. But yes, I'm in good spirits.
That's awesome. Hey, so there's an interesting one. I mean, I think what's really cool there, for our listeners as well, it's like you experienced some pain, you have your good physio, you got to get in there quickly. And in this case, it was just like, hey, actually, this one's one you can run through. So that's great. So then you run through without sort of second guessing everything and worrying. You mentioned there about the strength in the ankles. Like I've rolled ankles. I'm a trail runner. I always want to strengthen those. I get socially targeted on Instagram all the time by this thing called like Sidekick Tool or something. Did you get?
Me too.
Yeah,
constant.
And in particular,
have you bought it yet?
I haven't bought it yet, but I've definitely been thinking about it because also they do a lot of influencer marketing, right? So it's like often it's Molly Seidel who is promoting it, or Ali Ostrander, who we love as well, promoting it. And it does sound like it's like for people who have like, Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy or whatever, but it's like, it sounds like it's a pretty multi-purpose one for like strengthening your arches or strengthening your ankles. So I was curious if you had experienced it yet, or if you know anyone, and actually any of our listeners, if any of you have experienced the
Sidekick
tool. With the Sidekick Tool.
I have been looking at buying it because I love an Instagram purchase later. I
love a good Instagram
but
purchase.
Maybe I've held off on this one, but I do.
I've held off on it as well. But it is one of those ones which it sounds like there's like a lot of different variations. The things that I sort of like is that I'm trying to do more of is like things you can do when you're sort of like at home, in my case, playing with a 3-year-old, or, you've got some, you're watching something on the TV.
Exactly.
So you can foam roll or do something that is sort of like, it's not like another thing that you have to go out and do or go outside or whatever.
I think you could do quite a bit with bands, actually. My physio gave me quite a few banded things that you can do for the ankle and the feet.
That's actually a good one as well. I think the idea of being able to do that, and part of me is like, I want to break the habit of, if you're watching TV or doing something there, and then the phone is within reach,
Oh, yeah.
And it can be looking at Strava, it could be planning a race, it could be reading a Substack, it could be doing it, it could be doom scrolling Instagram. But it's like, what is something that's sort of like, different and sort of occupying? So anyway, maybe we'll try one. I saw a funny
meme yesterday that was about something around, I worked so hard it's something around like I'm so proud of myself for having the focus to just purely focus on my TV and put my phone down.
I know, isn't that so funny? Yeah.
I was like, I feel exposed.
Well, that's why I really like going now to the movie theater.
Yeah.
For that very reason that you just have to focus. Now, that sometimes means I went to the movies on Sunday. I went to watch Toy Story 5.
Okay, nice.
With Henry, but it was awesome. It was awesome. But it is kind of like you get an hour and a half to 2 hours where you're actually just, engaging with an actual movie. So
yeah, it's cool.
Well, that sounds like a good... yeah.
Were you also watching Western States this weekend? Tell us your highlights.
I watched... I had it on in the background most of all the day on Saturday. So we did a little rundown for people before. So 100 miles point to point. It starts in Lake Tahoe. It goes up a ski run, right? There's no snow. It's June, right? But it's very steep up. It goes through the high country that sometimes still has snow, not a ton of snow this year, I think. And then eventually hits these canyons, which go like down and then up and down and up, but they can get quite hot. And eventually and overall it's sort of, there's a lot of vertical. So it's probably like 18,000 feet of vertical. So what is that in meters? 6,000 meters or something.
Wow,
so it's 21,000 feet of vertical descent. So it's a net downhill. It's kind of like an equivalent of a Boston. So it's fast, you beat your quads up, and then the last, third to a quarter is very runnable if you have any legs. So anyway, the big story this year was the weather. It was an unseasonably cool year, the third coldest Western States on record. And that meant people sent it, full sent,
Okay, is that what happened?
So that was the thing. But it also meant that, of those people, a lot of people went for it. And quite a few people flamed out, even still. But anyway, the course records went down for male and female. In the female race, Jen Lichter, it was her debut Western States, her debut 100 miler. So it's very rare for someone to nail it on the first go, and particularly to nail Western States.
Is she American or was she German? I was trying to remember.
She's got a fascinating story. She grew up as an orphan in Colombia. Her family was torn apart by drug cartels and then eventually was adopted and came to America and grew up, I think, somewhere in the Midwest. And so, wonderful story. And obviously she's a super duper strong mountain runner. That's what she's known at. And she's been dominating in recent years at sort of the really hard 50K distance. So these really mountainous ones.
Yeah.
Like this race called Speed Goat in Utah, a race called the Rut in Montana. And so she's been crushing those races. But then she won Black Canyon to get her golden ticket in a course record time back in February. And so she just is known as really fast. She runs for ACG. She's a person of color, which is definitely huge in ultra and trail. It doesn't have the same diversity, even with marathoning, where you have all the East African and a lot of the African representation. So just a wonderful story there. I think the top 10 women were faster than the second woman last year. So they all ran so fast. But then on the men's side, Jim Walmsley's historic course record went down. 4 people went under the course record and 3 people went under 14 hours for the first time. So it was kind of a bit of a seminal moment. So that was the irony. 2 people broke the course record, went under 14 hours and didn't win. Crazy. But the person who won was a French guy called Vincent Boyard, who came on the scene a couple of years ago by a surprise winner of UTMB. the one around the 100-miler around Mont Blanc.
Yeah.
And he was he'd competed at Western States last year and DNF'd, and I think everyone written him off. But he just ran an amazing, he was at the front, but like he was in third, through the like 60 miles, and then eventually like did his move around. But I think he did the move to take the lead at like mile 90. So it was like super inspiring race to watch. A lot of the big names, Kilian Jornet dropped with injury.
I saw
Jim Walmsley dropped with injury. Hayden Hawks, like a handful of the big names did. Hans Troyer sent it and was so inspiring. He's known as young, and his tagline is young and fit. He is so fast and so courageous, and he led pretty much all the way to mile 70, I think it was.
Okay.
But basically, and then he apparently from early on he was puking and struggling, and he just puked all the way and eventually like ran out of, he couldn't keep any fuel down, but he was leading all the way, and then he fell apart and then DNF'd at the river at mile 80. So.
And I think we spoke about one of the podcasts when David Roche gave his golden ticket to that guy. I think that guy got into the top 10, didn't he?
He did get Canyon Woodward.
Which I thought was really cool.
Which was really, and he ran a super measured race as well. I think he was sort of in the teens for a lot of it. And then there was sort of carnage, and he sort of like consistently ran in and out.
Yeah, it's really
what's amazing about this race is getting in the top 10 means you automatically get to come back next year.
Do you?
So you don't have to then re-qualify with one of these golden ticket races. So they can then really sort of build their season around next year and do whatever they want with a goal they're going to be back in.
Golden ticket. And did I see correctly that Molly Seidel, she had really sort of grind through to just finish it?
So that was inspiring. So she was in the mix, I think, probably for the first 50 miles. Like the first 30, she was definitely up in the front pack or in around there, in the top 10. But I think eventually, like by mile 55, the wheels are starting to come off the bus. And by the way, the cool thing is like, she'd obviously, if you know Molly Seidel, like obviously she's the Olympic marathoner, Olympic bronze medalist, was obviously very, she is sponsored now by Satisfy. She's a little counterculture. She's very confident in who she is and like wanting to like express herself and be authentically her, which is inspiring and amazing. And then she showed up and she had a buzz cut like G.I. Jane, if you remember Demi Moore.
I thought I saw that on Instagram. Yeah.
So baller. Like she looked like she just does her thing. So anyway, I guess the wheels.
Satisfy were loving that. Those were the clothes. For anyone who doesn't know, I've got one T-shirt.
Oh, you do? Of course you do. You have one.
And then now everyone just mocks those Satisfy clothing all the time. But anyway, I have one T-shirt.
And so I think what was fascinating is that, so remember the lead woman, like Jen Lichter, finished in 15 hours and 22 minutes, something like that, 23 minutes. And I think maybe the top 10 was under like 16 and a half or 16:45, something like that. So Molly ends up like, the wheels come off the bus. She ends up walking it in. At one point, I think mile 94, she has to take a 2-hour nap because I think she was hypothermic. So they got her under a blanket and warmed her up and then fed her and then she popped back up. But what's crazy, she walked it in. She took it in 24 and a half hours. So under 24 hours is the sort of silver buckle. There's like a big milestone in the Western States. So what's even more courageous in my mind is like, she didn't even get the silver buckle. She literally walked it in and she finished it. And I think she was already like earning like sort of everyone's love and ultra running, that she was really, embracing the sport and the spirit of the sport. And like, I think she's just won so many hearts and minds.
So many marathoners would have, if you'd known you were doing that badly, let's say you're like a 2:20 and then it looks like you're at 3.5, you might just have stopped.
Of course, yeah.
So
it's just,
okay, cool.
And a lot of them would, so anyway, and then similarly, then I saw a post, already, maybe it was yesterday or the day before, from Des Linden, the famous Des Linden, won Boston in 2018, I think it was, and who's retired from like professional marathoning and has been talking about the trail. She basically said, I want to be here next year. I'm going to try to get a golden ticket. Like, I'm inspired.
So we'll like, it was like
she paced last year and she's sort of been like hinting at it. And she did that Marathon des Sables this year.
Yeah.
And I think she got third or fourth, something like that, So she has been dabbling in it, but like that made it sound like she's like in. So anyway. So it was good.
Right.
It was an inspiring weekend, and we can touch back in I think we're going to come to it in a little bit later, but it's sort of, I definitely it's one of those races, probably a bit like with comrades as you're following, where you really start to be like, what are my goals? What are my long-term goals? So, yeah. Cool.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for giving us the updates there. I think, lots of new people for us to all sort of look at and follow and, see what they're doing in the racing world, and something different for me outside of, the people I usually follow. So I've been enjoying that. So thanks for sharing that. You and I have been speaking quite a bit in the past about fueling. For our training. I think you shared a bit about when you went to your Harvard reunion. You've had sort of ups and downs with your weight. I know you've done the sort of 75 hard a few times, and I've discussed the sort of, even on the podcast, I think sort of the weight and performance, but also, of course, just thinking about how we fuel ourselves really well for our running. And of course, I've shared, a history of RED-S, relative energy deficiency syndrome, some of the challenges I have there, having had stress fractures, etc. So we both have been using that app, and I don't know if our listeners know about it, Fuelin, Fuelin. I think it's developed by South Africans, am I right?
I think it is developed by South Africans. Yes, I think it is developed by South Africans.
So I thought it would be quite cool to share a little bit about how you find it, whether it's useful to you. And then I thought I'd also share a little bit, because I've also worked with a nutritionist, and I've been over the last 2 weeks now looking at the Fuelin app, and I thought it was like actually really quite cool. And I thought maybe it's something we bring to the pod today. What's your experience of it?
Yeah. So I think it was they do a good job of socially targeting. So I think I discovered it. But then what I found is that a lot of the dietitians and people like sports nutritionists that I follow Fuelin. So and I've heard people talk about it. And so I know from my time in Aspen, a lady called Kylie Van Horn. And she has a company called Fly Nutrition, and she does a lot of her clients are top ultra runners that she works with. And then she works with people across the board, often people trying to recover from RED-S. She does a lot of work with actual male athletes who are under Fuelin. And so it's not just, female RED-S. I've she has like a little group program. I've done some, participated in some of her stuff before. It's super smart and intelligent, but it's like so much to think about. Like it feels like it's like, and it's like, well, on these days you should have like this amount of protein, but you need this amount of carbs and this amount of that. And then so on heavier days and that. And it's just like, it's great. And it's great to think about it, but it's like, God, this is kind of a lot, right?
There is a lot.
And then there's this, for me as well, it's like this balance, which is like, you don't want to be under fueling. Right. But you do want to be fueling. I wanted to be fueling the right way, but I don't want to be over fueling. And just like, it's quite easy when you do a lot of running. And we see this a lot with newer runners in some ways. It's like you start to rev up your metabolism, which is great. And you start to lose weight. We've talked about some of my stories from when I first got into running, but it's also quite easy to like overeat, right? Then to sort of like, you train hard. So then you just like, you kind of go a little overboard. At least that's, something that can have a tendency to do. So Fuelin, what I really liked about it is twofold, is that you could sort of set in sort of like what you're trying to target if you have a target kind of weight. And that might be, you might be trying to gain weight, or you might be trying to maintain weight. So like, I actually don't want to lose any weight at all. I just want to be at this weight. And then it will then, recommend, sort of like, your sort of macros for the day. And what I really like about it is that you can connect it to Training Peaks or Garmin or those kind of things. So in particular, it works really well once your run is in, But what I found works really well with Training Peaks is like, if you're planning out your runs for the 1 week or the next week, it will then like incorporate, you've got a 3-hour run on that day, or whatever, and it will then plan for it, right? And so then it will like, it'll adjust, or you're going to need some more fuel. Also, you need some, maybe it'll be fueling the day before in anticipation for a 5-hour or 3-hour hard run on the Saturday. So what I liked is like, it kind of took a lot of the thinking out. And you could sort of set, what I liked, a couple of things for me in particular was that you can several things. Firstly, it would do the macros. So it would like target a certain amount of protein. So for me, it's like, I really wanted to be on top of that. And that's the one that's really to undershoot. And then I actually found it's pretty easy to log. So if you can log barcodes. So That's really easy. So if you're doing a bowl of cereal, say you can scan the barcode and like half a cup of whole milk and voila, or whatever. But also it will also do things like you could just be like, hey, it's like, large plate of lasagna, and just type it in, and it's got some AI in there that will then like, give you predict what it'll take a guess of what it is. And it's by and large, the key thing here is not precision, right? So I found it kind of much easier than trying to like if you've ever tried to log like a MyFitnessPal or try to log food in the past.
Much easier.
So anyway, those are my high level thoughts so far. I can go more, but what about you? What have you experienced with it so far?
And just to sum up there, just to sum up there, I think one of the reasons I wanted to bring this to the podcast is because I think you had shared with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that because for you, the challenge was about, had times you've been too lean, but you also want to keep your weight at a healthy level for running, but still keep your power. And you'd notice that you'd actually quite safely lost weight and still your performance was good. Yes. And I think that's the bit that I wanted to kind of share, that it had helped you do that.
Yeah.
And because I think that'll give people quite a bit of confidence.
Yeah. And it really is not like you're trying to like crash. And it will also like, you can sort of, when you put your target weight in, as soon as you get into sort of, 3 pounds of it, it will sort of say you're pretty much there, and it will stop trying to put you in any deficit. But even then it'll sort of like, its default and recommended is like a 250 calorie deficit, which is not too much. And then you can try to go more aggressive, and it'll start to give warnings like performance will degrade, right?
Yeah.
Then the last thing that's actually kind of cool, you can put your races in there. So when you put your race in there, it will then give you a carb load protocol. Yeah. So like in a week of the race, it will have make sure no deficit, but then it will purposely try to carb load, and it will say things like lower the fiber, don't eat too many vegetables or leafy greens, like focus on simple carbs.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's just nice to have a sort of and it's kind of doing it for you.
So I have come with like a different set of challenges, a different sort of mindset to it. So that's why I thought it'd be cool if we both share, because there's probably listeners with different angles or different, coming from different perspectives or different things that are worrying them. So for me, I have used in the past apps like MyFitnessPal to track, but it's kind of quite triggering, for want of a better word, because it's all about like, for me, it quickly becomes, like how little did you have, or, like so that it's more really designed for people who are wanting to manage their weight, keep their weight low, etc. So whereas this one, what I love about it right from the start is you're doing it for performance. So it's the app is designed for endurance sport, for performance. Now you can have weight loss goals, and as you said, you can set those, but it is really more about how do you perform at your best. So for me, I really wanted to pull that out because I think it's such an important mindset, and it's something that really helps me because I'm somebody I'm notorious. I've had lots of my own challenges. I won't go into them today, but I'm someone who doesn't know very easily what is the amount that I need to eat. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I found really interesting was I put in, yes, I'm working on performance, but I did also put in like if I was going to be in a bit of a deficit and if my weight was maybe even a bit lower. So I've even set it up to estimate me at maybe I'm going to lose some weight and maybe I'm going to be at an even lower weight than I think I am, for example, just for interest to see what the parameters are. And even then I realized within 3 days how I'm massively underfueling.
Yeah,
so it was just quite interesting.
You're underfueling yeah, exactly. That's so interesting.
So even when I set it to lower parameters, I'm like, wow, I have a lot.
Yeah, you were massively underfueling.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So why I'm sharing that is like, it's giving me the confidence to be like, you know what, you actually do need more than this. Mm-hmm. And giving myself the permission to be like, add a yogurt in here, put another egg in. No, you don't need half a bagel. You need a full bagel, whatever it is. So I've been finding that, and also noticing things like fats and protein, like how far behind you can get quite quickly if you're not intentional about putting them in. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I think that's so good there. I think my goal, which I'm not far off now in there, is that once I get to the sort of the target weight, which is not trying to get anywhere near as light as I was 2 years ago when I went to Leadville, I'm excited to keep using it when it's like, it's now in a maintenance mode.
Just to see.
And what's really cool is that if you program your workouts, it will tell you what to eat beforehand. So
Yes,
it's like,
I was
hey, you've
gonna
got a
say
hard
that.
workout. So it's like, hey, you need 100 grams of carbs at breakfast before you do your hard workout.
Yeah.
It's like,
So I
oh,
was gonna
wow.
put
I
that
might
in.
have done like a bar, which might have got me like 25 grams of carbs. It's like,
Yeah.
I need to eat like, some real, 2 servings of oatmeal with some sugar on it to actually like really get what I need in there.
So what I've been doing is because I have a coach, everything goes in Training Peaks. And then it's everything in the whole week now. Basically, everything from Training Peaks comes into this app.
Yes.
So it says some runs I'm having like an early snack.
Yes.
Other runs when there's a big one, I'm having a full breakfast.
Yes.
And then because I'm usually doing weights in the evening or also cycling, or I've got a double run day, it's putting in all of these and I can just check the timings.
Yes.
And it'll even give me a reminder, you haven't had lunch yet or whatever it is. So for somebody who's really struggles with the underfueling, it's really showing me, and it also tells me how much I need for during the run.
Yes, it does. It does
And
tell you what you need to do
it'll
in the
tell
run.
you need to try and get 90 grams of carbon. So the only thing I can say about it is 29 pounds a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd just quickly throw this in here. I did a rough calculation because I think we mentioned this in one of our earlier pods.
Yes.
Premium Strava, Premium Training Peaks, Zwift, Fuelin takes you to 60 pounds a month. So it's not cheap when you start adding it all up. Throw in a running coach. Mine's 150 pounds a month. Mine's quite expensive. Physio once a month, a good 100. My gym I've kept nice and cheap, 40. So that's nearly 300 a month. So it shows you how quickly costs can go up. So it's one of the more expensive apps. However, I'm going to just finish with this, is that I've worked a lot with a sports nutritionist, and that's 150 pounds a month to speak to her once or twice.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about it is, and I have shared this with her, is I notice how much she uses AI anyway to record the calls and then come up with a plan. Now, the reason I like the nutritionist is she's got her own history of eating challenges, stress fractures. There's that emotional connection. She understands me. She makes good suggestions. But I did give her the feedback. I said, if you're going up against an app like this, which is really giving me every day feedback and giving me that sense check, like, hey, Alice, you are way behind. Come on. Get this food in. I speak to once, maybe twice a month. You need to we all need to think about that. How do we bring that human connection? Why would we be spending 150, 200 pounds a month if an app is so? I just thought it was quite an interesting one. I'd love to hear from listeners what they think. Would they use an app? Would they rather speak to a nutritionist? What do they think?
I think that's so, and it's like, I have never done the one-on-one with the nutritionist because I never feel like I've at a point where I've like, this is a big problem. And I think that makes sense. Like, I know a lot of people go there when they're like, hey, my races keep going wrong because I keep puking in races and GI.
Exactly.
And that makes it like, okay, work with the nutritionist there. I think you're right. You know what? And what's cool is when you see an app that is continually making improvements.
Exactly.
A new thing they have now, which maybe you've only ever experienced this, is that it will give you a rough plan for the day. It'll say like this meal, like so 30 grams of carbs at breakfast for the meal there. And it gives you all the macros. Now, say you put in, you say, well, I just had a cup of coffee or whatever. And then you get to lunch and you do that one. It then starts to adjust at the end of the day. So it's like,
brilliant.
Oh, your evening meal was going to be 40 grams of protein. Now it's like, you need to do like 80 grams of protein because you need to play catch up.
They added in an evening snack for me the other day because I was quite far behind.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is new from this morning. So and so that for someone like me, it's very helpful. So I'm being very impressed by it so far.
Yeah. Well, I want to see how it keeps going with you. A couple of other tips which are kind of neat for it, which I'm not sure if you've done, because again, this is a cool example where they're using AI in it. So say it's lunch and there's a certain amount that it's like recommended for lunch. There's a thing where you can sort of like, ask the AI or whatever, and you can have it just suggest stuff. So I started to do that just to get ideas, and then I would go shop for them. But sometimes it's like, there's an option which says, use my ingredients. I put in, so I say like, I've got smoked salmon, I've got bagel, I've got some cheese, cream cheese, whatever it is. Like I've got like, you can decide, I've got some tomato, like you just basically give a random stuff of what's in the fridge. And then it'll be like, you want to use like 100 grams of smoked salmon and you need a 1.5 bagels or whatever it is, So it's like, it's kind of neat way to use up what you have in the fridge or in the, in the pantry. So cool.
Oh, and the final thing I will say is you can also dictate. I had half a bagel and half a teaspoon of, and then it puts it in. which I love.
I
so you can walk around your kitchen and dictate into it.
I haven't tried the dictating as well.
It's like voice noting your app. So cool. Enough on
Fuelin, but I think
Fuelin. They need to sponsor us.
Yeah, exactly. We're not sponsored. We don't have we probably should have some affiliate link that we could give people that would give them an extra discount. But yeah, definitely an app that you've used and are having good success with.
The other sport that's been started this week is Wimbledon. I don't know if you ever watched the tennis.
I have not been watching it, but I knew it was on. Mum and my sister had mentioned that it was like on in the background. I do need to try to get in the habit of just putting it on because I love this.
Did you used to watch it in the past?
Yeah, and I have memories growing up where I mean, when I grew up, we, had 5 channels or 4 channels. It wasn't like we'd have had cable, but Wimbledon was always on I think the BBC. And in the month of July, there was always a TV on that had Wimbledon, particularly in the evenings. That's what I remember. It's like those late, up until
long summer evenings.
Long summer evenings, and there's some random mixed doubles and whatever. The tennis is just that sound of
yeah, it's great.
So I need to put someone in the background because I think I can have access to it through one of my services.
Have you ever been to?
I've never made it. It's one of those ones I've never been, and I don't. With so many of these things, there's tips and tricks. So some of the things we've gone to a lot is that long story short, we've gone to Royal Ascot a fair amount. I got to go once with my best friend, a couple of times with my best friend Ben, and because of his dad, they had Royal Enclosure tickets, which is top hat. You have to wear the top hat and tails. And whatever happened is when the way they would invite you to come after a couple of years, I started to get an invite. So every year I would, and then I got to nominate my parents. So then they would get invites each year to the Royal. And so anyway, there's that and Henley, a couple of sporting events. I know how those work and the logistics. I have no idea how Wimbledon works. Have you ever been to Wimbledon?
I have years and years ago, centre court, Andy Roddick. Why can I not remember who was playing? But it was a great game. I just got lucky with tickets and was able to go. But Wimbledon, growing up in South Africa, we only have 3 channels, Hugh, not even 5. It was apartheid. But then it's winter there. But it's usually be the winter school holidays and Wimbledon be on. And then you would get out with your brother, practice, being whoever it was, Boris Beck or whatever in those days, Stefan Edberg, Steffi Graf, those so for me, it's always been a big event every year. But anyway, I saw that Serena Williams, who's obviously retired a long time ago, has come back to play. And I've been listening to a little bit of Andy Roddick's podcast. He's actually really got great sense of humor, super smart, intelligent guy. And he's got quite a cool podcast. And he was saying, if he was going to make a comeback, he would not make it Wimbledon. It would be some kind of random tournament next to a dodgy sort of gas station, in the middle of the desert somewhere where nobody would know you and you could come and try your tennis. But no, Serena Williams is going to Wimbledon for her sort of making a bit of a comeback. And she was being interviewed. Sorry, yes, you're going to say something.
No. So what's her story? What are her goals with her comeback?
Yeah, what are her goals? So people were basically asking her she said, look, I've won everything and I've won a lot and I'm experienced at winning and I know about winning and I've kind of achieved everything I could ever want to achieve. What our goal is here is just to come and see what happens and enjoy it, which I thought was really interesting because I think a lot of people, I'd probably be more on the Andy Roddick side. I don't know if I'd want to come back if I wasn't going to do particularly well. But for her, it's actually just more about she's there, she's with her family, she's staying in the house that she used to stay in, she's got her kids. She's playing against people, partnering up with different people for the warm-ups. She just seems to be out and about, seeing friends, chatting to people and having a really good time. Obviously, she's still a top player and she's excellent and people will struggle to beat her. And I think you could see people's faces in the draw, this poor person has to play Serena Williams on their first Wimbledon debut and she's here for some sort of entertainment.
Yes.
But it'll be interesting to see how she does. But I thought, I know you wanted to chat about goals, but isn't it interesting that somebody of that caliber is prepared to come back and just do it to see how they do and just be curious and enjoy it? Really interesting.
I so love that, to be curious and to do it on her terms. And it's interesting. It's we may not even fully get to know what her personal goals are related to it. But I kind of love that. And particularly when the whole goal might be, it's like the goal is likely not win Wimbledon. That's not like an outcome driven goal, but it's like an experiential goal and a whole, like maybe a community goal or, things related to the family and the experience. And
it is interesting because I also heard Andy Murray being interviewed a while ago, and he also has a great sense of humor, by the way. He was saying that he didn't really enjoy the tournaments and the matches. And actually, while you're playing tennis, it's quite hard. You're not always enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So you really only get to sort of enjoy the win once you've had it. But Serena Williams, he was actually sharing, she loves all of that, all of the tournaments, the tennis, the competition. Maybe it's because she's just so good and wins all the time. So it's interesting, perhaps for her, she also shared that she's enjoying being back and to listen to her coach, being disciplined, doing all the training. So she obviously genuinely just does love the sport, the process of it, the competition. So yeah, I thought that was cool. What are your goals? Have you got? I know you've been looking for events, but are you getting any closer to thinking about what it is that you want to focus on?
Yes. So it's interesting. I'm having to do a bit of a reset and all that. And I'm not sure if all our listeners know this, but like our planned move back to the UK is sort of on pause indefinitely. There's some circumstances that are sort of led, work, family, etc. That's like, this just isn't going to make sense right now. And so it's going to end up looking more trips back to the UK, particularly in the summer. We're going to be heading back this summer, in August. And I think in future summers, it's going to probably look like more extended trips to Europe, which is not a bad thing. Being in the, not being in the UK in the depths, darkest winter is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
So with that, that's a big shift and it's a big change. So it's like, what are the goals reset as a result of that? And a couple of things in my mind are, it's like, what is, I look for things that are both inspiring, but like, I think you and I are quite similar here. I like to train. Right?
Yeah.
I do like to train, and I like to do hard things, but there's this, this idea of like going with the flow, like swimming with the current. And then swimming against the current, right? Yeah. And so living in San Antonio, Texas, there's a lot of things that are great here, but like training for really big mountain races is like, it's a bit of swimming against the current. Yeah. Like to go and just clock the vertical miles. So the vertical gain, it's a lot of repetition and stuff. Now that can work if the goal is meaningful enough. But I've been thinking firstly about like how to sort of like line up with the things that things are quite holistic. Like what are the things I can do a lot of here? I can do a lot of good running, like literal running. Right. Mm-hmm. It's a great place for like road training.
Okay.
And there's a lot of heat. There's like the training through the summer. So I think it's a good thing for training for warmer races. For desert races, for hotter condition races.
Am I hearing MDS coming out your mouth?
Well, maybe not. I was thinking less. I was thinking more Arizona desert races than like Sahara desert. But anyway, it was just like thinking of things like that sort of align that maybe in many ways are more runnable than just like, hey, some of these mountain races they're just big hiking trips.
Exactly.
And the running is these big, long running, like 5-mile descents, which again are really hard to train for here. So that's like one piece of the backdrop. I also, I do like to run, but I do like to run on trail. So the sort of, the things that are starting to shape up for me there are sort of a couple of things which I think start to tie together. A couple of years ago, I went and it happened to be in San Francisco for the weekend. And there's this race in Marin County called Big Alta. They used to have a 50K and a 28K, and I bootlegged the 28K. It was sold out, but I happened to be there. And so for the weekend. And so I just showed up 10 minutes after the start and then ran the course. I had the GPS on my watch. And I didn't take any aid stations, but it was just, there's this phrase. Have you heard them talk about this concept of California carpet? Have you ever heard it? It's like when people talk about like a lot of the California races, they talk about the single track trails that are often like pretty buffed and pretty smooth.
Okay, nice.
And so they're both fast. They're very runnable. Whereas what's often like when people talk about the East Coast Trail, they often call it the Beast Coast. And often it's a lot of rocky and roots, so it can often be kind of slow and technical. In Texas, we have a mix. Sometimes we have quite rocky trails.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really loved that. It was one of my best running experiences ever. And so I've been thinking about that race. It's kind of I think it's in March, which like a March race is a great time to train for in Texas because you can train so well through the winter and it's not so hot. But anyway, this past year they added 100K. And it's a point to point. So you start in one place and you end up in the other, and you start under the Golden Gate Bridge, and they're from San Francisco, and then you go along Marin, and then eventually end up, and there's a bunch of climbing, but it's very runnable. So that race is speaking to me on sort of the multiple levels of it's stunning. I've run some of those trails. It's quite runnable. They're still vert, but it's almost like, because it's so smooth, you can sort of run a lot of those uphills. You don't have to sort of grind into a hike. And then you can bomb a lot of the downhills. We know I like downhills. So that's speaking to me. We have comrades, which is which is obviously, and because it's the downhill year, that's the sort of speaking to me. I kind of like that's that sort of lead into sort of a faster, more runnable. And so then I think then the race that I remember saying that I'm really excited about, that it was this race, Javelina 100 in the desert that I paced my friend at, and it was so cool.
I see Carla Molinaro going back.
Carla Molinaro is going back. So obviously you have to sign, it sells out on the day in January when they open registration. So I'm looking ahead for sort of October 2027. And so that starts to feel like a sort of a year where it feels like it builds, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the Comrades would be a great build into something like Javelina.
And you'd be happy to do all the road running for that?
For Comrades? Yeah, I think it would. It would be kind of interesting because it would, the training here is a lot of road running. Compared to when I was thinking about Wales, I was starting to envisage it, I'm going to be on the trail 5 days a week. Here, I might be on the trail 1 to 2 days a week.
Okay.
It's just practical. I'm always wanting to do, if I'm living in somewhere like San Antonio, I'll always want to do the track once a week to sort of keep speed. There's some good hilly road running here, but there's just a lot of it is just flat road running. So.
And are you thinking of getting another race in this year? Because I think we spoke about that before.
Then that's where it comes down to. So next year starts to feel coherent, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is watching this past Western States, it's that race does speak to me. It's hot. It is runnable, but it's a lot of vert, but it's really hard. But I think right now you have to sort of commit to it's 10 years to get in now, with those lotteries. So you got to sort of commit to getting in. So this is where the end of this, from now, because we're only July 1st today when we're recording, I'm looking at okay, could I get a Western States qualifier to enter the lottery in December and just have that, because then, as I was thinking about that big Ultra 100K, that would get me a Western States qualifier. And so each year, just making sure I'd run at least 100K or more race that is a qualifier.
Shouldn't you look for something October, November if you've got a race in March?
Exactly. So I've looked at a few. There's basically, and then this is the thing, we've talked a bit about this one. These races, the big races, the prominent races will sell out. And they sell out early. You got to be so organized. So anyway, I looked at it, and so this is where we're down, and we haven't made a decision yet. I looked at the Western States has a helpful qualifying races, and if we look at the races between now and early November, there are 3 that could work. There's a 100K race, because they're all 100K or more. There's a 100K race in San Diego in October, so that's doable given where my fitness is at. Mm-hmm. There's then a 100-mile race called the Arkansas Traveler in Arkansas in October. And then there's a 100-mile race that's near Western States course. It's more the flatter parts of it, called Rio de Lago in early November. And so those are the ones, and I got to try to figure out which one is really lining up. 100-mile is such a big, you got to really want to do it and get the clear why. But when I like things that sort of all line up. it would be all three of those races are more runnable. They're not these like slow mountain, like, adventures. And that Rio de Lago is a very runnable 100-miler. So that's both appealing, and it's in California on those kind of California trails, nice. California carpet. So I'm sort of feeling that's what's sort of coming together at this stage. I just need to think through and
find the thing that speaks to you.
Yeah. And also this idea, I'm curious, this is a good one for maybe you, which is like, how important for you is it for like, when you go to this race would you go to an important race on your own? Do you need, Dale, your partner there? Do you care about any other family to be there or not? Or do you always want some friends to come that it's more an event? How do you think about those kind of things, particularly when it's a big race?
Well, I'm doing Chicago. Dale and I are supposed to be doing together, and hopefully that still goes ahead. I am in to do Valencia. I've booked my own flight. I paid for my hotel, I think last week. I suspect I'm going on my own. I am imagining that there'll be people I know, Strava friends and whoever else that are out there that I will get to spend time with. But I have thought about that. What will it be like to race on my own? Will it be as enjoyable? I think ideal world, I'd love to go if Dale's there, and I'd love to go where I've got friends running. So Boston, my running coach has invited me to go with her and some of her girlfriends. They're all pretty good runners, to run with them. And she and I have sort of been talking about doing a few different events. So I think I'd love to either run with friends, go with friends, or with Dale. So I think it'll be interesting to see if I do Valencia on my own, what it's like. I think it might be a bit weird.
Yeah.
But I think having some camaraderie or people that you're meeting up with would be cool, because it's going to feel like I'm there just to race if I'm on my own. So it will be interesting mindset wise.
Yeah, this is what I've been thinking about, and sort of like, so watching Western States, the one last piece that we didn't talk about is that each year the last hour of the race, there's a 30-hour cutoff. So 29 and change, in that last hour, they call it the golden hour. And it's when a lot of people are finishing. There's actually a disproportionate amount of the field that is finishing in the last hour. And they've been fighting their big battles, whatever it is. Some of them, everyone has a story. And you see the finish lines, right? And usually it was such a big race that's often taken so many years to get in. They have a whole crew and family and stuff. And it's sort of, when I think about that, and when I had like my 2024 Leadville was so meaningful, I pushed Henry in a stroller across the finish line. I had my crew, I had my wife and son. It was all a very meaningful.
But emotional, yeah.
Emotional. It's sort of, and so when I think about those races, to do 100-miler is like the idea of doing it solo or like having like minimal. It's like, it could be cool, but it's like, being clear on the why will be pretty interesting then. So often my why was like, hey, seeing my son at the finish line.
Yeah. And I guess both of us have been through quite a few changes this year. So it might be interesting to see whether, and we can maybe pick up on this later in the year, see how we feel, whether some of that also fuels our why.
Yeah.
So yeah. Cool.
But I think that's when I think about comrades next year, that's kind of feels pretty meaningful to go to something like that, like with you, like we'd go together, and then you obviously are going to have some family there. Maybe we have some other people from the Two Average Runners universe.
I think a lot of people are going. I think
that sort of makes it sort of fun.
Because I don't feel like it's the 100th. That's like kind of also a bit different.
It is a bit different, but that doesn't feel then that it has to be, it feels like there's enough there without it being family. Like when I think about the Javelina I paced at, we had a core group of friends, and I don't think Courtney had any family or stuff there, but we had our sort of like tight little pack.
Yeah, I know. That's great.
So those are sort of the things. My friend Courtney is running that Arkansas Traveler 100-miler. I think she's going to be going for like a top place at that kind of race. But that also is another cool reason where there's going to be other people there that could make it a bit more, okay, that could be kind of meaningful to go and do that race.
That's why I'm said yes to Boston, and we'll chat next week, but I'm in on a good for age potential pick. Well, for Tokyo, they've got a whole system going, but we'll chat about that next week, because I just want to jump in with a bit of I think we've got a listener question. I'm just checking myself before we go.
We do.
So how do you deal with a run or race that goes badly? Do you let yourself feel disappointed, or do you have a sort of system or a go-to way for moving past it quickly? So what do you do when a race goes badly? Do you allow yourself to feel disappointed, or do you have some sort of way of moving through it quickly? What's your kind of experience of that?
Yeah. So I'm going to separate the two things, the run and the race.
Yeah.
The run, I think there's a saying there, which is like a third of your runs will be great, a third of your runs will be average or mediocre, and a third of your runs will suck. Yeah. Right. And so I feel with that one that's much, when I have one of those, it's sort of like water off a duck's back. It's like, hey, I got it done. Was there anything that I can quickly learn about it? But just like move on. Like, I think on Monday I went and did a run, and I got out and did something, and it ended up, and I only ran 30 minutes, and it was just like, it was kind of sucky. And it was like, I got 30 minutes. It's done. I've forgotten about it, and we move on and we fight another day. When it comes to a race, I like to have a little moment just to sit in it, because I want to like sort of like reflect on sort of like what happened, what maybe I expected, what didn't, and sort of be curious about what is there to learn from it. But then it's like, again, it's realizing not to weigh any given race. It's all about this long-term growth journey, this like mastery we talk about. So that's how I sort of think about it. How about you?
Yeah. A bad run, I think like you, it's part of what we do. I actually quite like them in a way, because if everything is always going well and you're always hitting your paces and it's always easy, you're not really preparing yourself.
Yes.
So when I'm having especially the faster stuff, because I don't have one fast twitch fiber in my entire being. When I find it hard, I actually regularly thinking, I'm glad that this was this hard, because a marathon is hard. I'm glad I'm suffering. Good. I'm glad that, I try not to run on treadmills. I would rather face the gale force wind, the heat, the rain, the whatever it is, and just have a bit of a rough time out there, because every time I'm doing that, I'm thinking this is going to add up. So that's kind of my mindset around a bad run. Sometimes I will think, okay, I really am not performing as well as I should. Why is it? Is it a fueling thing? But it's so much better for bad things to happen outside of the race. Like I struggled with nausea so much in the past of me stopping to throw up or retching. And it kept happening even in my harder training run sessions. That's kind of gone now. And I'm glad that it happened so much, because I could work on it. When something isn't working well, at least you have something it's almost like feedback at work. I don't mind. I mean, no one likes it, but if you tell me that wasn't good enough and why, I almost don't mind, because at least I've got something to fix or work on.
Yes, exactly.
So that's kind of my mentality there. A race is different. Now, I guess my challenge that I find is if you run and it doesn't go as well as you would like, there's a lot of pressure I find to be really positive and say, oh, I'm really pleased. But actually, it sucks if it didn't go the way you'd like. So when I DNF'd Paris, everybody said I did the right thing because I was throwing up. I was so sick. But, and they were like, well done for getting to halfway. But it was actually people let me there take time to reflect. London, which didn't go so well, or Berlin, people put you under quite a lot of pressure to still feel really proud of what you've achieved. But actually, I think it is useful to sit and really think about what was it that went wrong? Why has that happened twice now? What should I be doing differently, etc. So I allow myself the time just privately just to feel a bit rubbish about it. But then I think the point that you make is the big thing. It's just one race. And the mistake I'm making is this the last chance I've got to do a really good time? Is this the next one the last chance I've got? Is the next one thinking that everything is about that race?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the difference. Like I have to do really well at Chicago, or else it means I'm a rubbish runner.
Yeah.
So that's more the difference, the emphasis of just the one race. But I think you should, for me, it really works to stop and actually think about, allow myself to feel disappointed. Why not? But then, yes, move on eventually. So what helps me move on, because that was part of the question, immediately set a new goal and enter a new race pretty much the next day. I'm one of those, I think we discussed before, Dale is like, that's it, never again. I'm like, day after London, I'm in for Chicago, I'm in for Valencia, I'm looking at 2027, I'm ready, so, set another goal, keep moving.
Yeah.
Get back to training.
I like both. I like that. And I sometimes find myself doing the same thing where it's like I immediately, set the next race. That happened after Leadville this year. I was already and it's interesting. Sometimes I think with the DNF is an interesting one because if the race doesn't go to plan for certain reasons and you aren't completely destroyed, it often can feel like, okay, well, you do a quick reset and sort of try to carry the momentum forward. So that's what happened to me after Leadville. I think sometimes if a race doesn't go so well, but you actually also buried yourself, it can be helpful just to sit a little bit for me and then just really sort of reflect on what does make sure but I think then it's finding ways to, once you processed it, to then just move on. It's just, one foot in front of the other, just like it's in the race, one foot in front of the other, just one foot in front of the other, and continue to work towards the long term.
Feels like a good place to end. I'm not sure if you had anything else you wanted to share today.
No, I think that was a good one. It was a great listener question. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
We always appreciate those. Let us know if you try out Fuelin or if anyone has tried the Sidekick tool. The
Sidekick tool. I'm desperate. I might have to buy this thing now, but let's see.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hope you have a happy, healthy week of running and training.
Yes.
And look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Take care, listeners. Bye-bye.
Thanks to you. Bye.